Welcome to the March 16th regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. Please take a minute to silence your cell phone and then join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Jen, can you take roll for me, please?
President Rausch.
Here.
Vice President McFarland.
Here.
Secretary Ringgold is here. Treasurer Lauterbach. Here. Trustee Blasey.
Here.
Trustee Craig.
Here.
Trustee Horowitz.
Present.
Quorum.
Thank you. Item 2 is the consent agenda. Item 2.1 are approval of the minutes from the February 16th regular meeting, February 16th, 2026 closed session, and then the February 27th, 2026 special meeting. Item 2.2 are resignations. The below staff, as listed in your agenda packet, have announced their resignation on the dates effective in your agenda packet. Item 2.3 are financials. Approval of the payment of the school system's bills for the month of January 2026 is listed in the check registers prepared by Lori Holderby in the amount of $7,026,513 is recommended. Distribution of obligations by fund is included in the documentation. And finally, item 2.4 are legal payments. Approval is requested to authorize the legal payments to the below list of professional legal fees as outlined in your agenda packet. I have a motion for item 2.1 through 2.4.
So moved. Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by McFarland. Any discussion or questions on 2.1 through 2.4? All in favor of approving items 2.1 through 2.4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 3, presentations to the board. 3.1, Shining Stars. Penny.
We have 2 shining stars this evening, as usual. And for the first one, I am excited to welcome Hilarie Huschke up. You get to come stand right by me. Hold your little award while I say some wonderful things about you. Congratulations. Hilarie joined the MPS team in 2011 as a theater teacher at Central Middle School, which I did not know until I read this. Then transitioned to an English teacher position at Northeast Middle School, which is where she currently serves and is a beloved staff member. During her time at MPS, Hilarie also served as head drama coach for several years at Northeast. Hilarie, you were nominated by several people to win this award, and then we went and got a few extra little quotes about you just to make it a little extra fun tonight. So here are some of the things that your colleagues have to say about you. You are genuinely kind to all students and teachers, and your sense of humor must be something else because you keep people laughing at Northeast all the time. You care deeply about Northeast students and staff, and you support a positive culture, the positive culture that they're really trying to cultivate there. You're a big part of that. And recently, it sounds like you have been a co-host of the daily announcements with Principal Keith, and you even serve as DJ on select days, selecting positive, uplifting music to add to the fun and the atmosphere. Is there any particular song you like the most?
Oh, anything by Bruno Mars.
Okay, I can see where that would be uplifting. Your goal in participating in the announcements was to make it good and better, which is what you do with everything that you touch. You try to make it better. Another colleague shared that you regularly collaborate with other colleagues throughout the school to ensure that there is consistency for all Northeast students, which I know is something everyone at Northeast cares about. This extends to all aspects of instruction, including student assessment, data collection, and curriculum development. Students in your classes understand that regular routines and procedures for self-assessment. They are expected to actively engage and participate in class on a daily basis, which ensures that each and every student in the class is learning, which is why we're here, right? It's the heart of it. And your classroom is relaxed, fun, and an engaging environment. Students are invited to be who they are, to make real-world connections, and just enjoy school, which is what we all want. So thank you for being an awesome teammate, and thank you for being a shining star.
Thank you.
You're welcome to go say hello to the board. Illustrating the fun right there, I see. Our second shining star tonight is Paul Hoisington. I don't think Paul is with us, but I'm still going to read some great things about Paul. Paul joined our team in 2020 as a substitute bus driver, then transitioned to part-time driver, eventually becoming a full-time driver. So just a perfect progression, which is the position he currently holds. He also works in our grounds and maintenance team in the summer months, and we love it when our team members choose to do that. Paul was nominated for his Shining Star by MPS colleagues, and among their comments are the following. Paul is caring and compassionate as a bus driver because he consistently prioritizes the well-being of students. He takes time to get to know each child individually and their needs, ensuring they feel valued and safe during their commute to and from school. He actively listens to their concerns, whether it's a difficult day or some kind of personal issue, and he responds with empathy and understanding. His patience and dedication create a nurturing environment, fostering trust, respect among students, making him an invaluable presence in the daily lives of students. I know I've said this before, but I think we just always need to remind ourselves, bus drivers, they're like the first ones that see those beautiful faces in the morning and can set the tone for the day. And as they get off the bus in the evening, just put a great end cap on their day. Another colleague said that Paul exemplifies the values of MPS through his unwavering commitment to student safety and his exceptional professional relationships with staff and the public. Paul's been a bus driver for almost 5 years now. Right now, he has a route that is primarily for special services, and he often receives really great feedback from his paraprofessionals, the parents, and the students about how nice and welcoming and caring and patient he is. He's very reliable, and the transportation department says that we can count on him to show up when he needs to show up and to do his job with perfection. His calming nature and attitude provide his students with a sense of security when riding the bus, and he ensures that students start and end their day with a warm and friendly face. Congratulations to Paul for being a shining star.
Thank you, Penny. Congratulations to Paul and Hilarie, and thanks for joining us. Item 3.2, Spotlight on Excellence. This week we have Carpenter Pre-Primary Center. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. All right, good evening. All right, my name is Melissa Ahern, and I'm the director at the Pre-Primary Center at Carpenter Street School. I'm here tonight with our developmental kindergarten teaching team. If you can just wave, I've got Katrina Spry, I've got Laura Deshay, and Amber Snell. And we have some really amazing student authors here tonight. We have Alex, can you wave? Yeah, there we go. Grady and Roman. And they're going to come up here in just a second. We're so excited to share our journey around story making, loose parts, and play inquiry. I'd like to take a few minutes to share a bit about our journey and then give the real stars of tonight's evening the opportunity to shine and share their stories with all of you. So, all right, so the Pre-Primary Center is a special place. We serve the early childhood hub for our district. For the past 3 years, our team has been on a deep dive to fine-tune our practices around playful inquiry and instruction. Our first staff book study explored the concept of story workshop, as you can see on the slide, focusing on finding provocations that spark student interest and selecting materials or loose parts that are dynamic, open-ended, and versatile. Early in this journey, we had the opportunity to invite some of our board members here today to visit and experience a play provocation for themselves, a little blast from the past. As you can see from the photos, they had the chance to explore new materials, practice curiosity, and build a story connected to a special memory. It was a great reminder that taking a moment to pause, play, and reflect is important for everyone. Yes, even adults need that too. This year, we focus more deeply on story making. This is a playful literacy approach that provides a framework for creating stories through exploration and play. It builds on our foundation of those provocations and loose parts while creating a more intentional structure for both students and teachers. Story making allows students to learn and create stories through purposeful play, engage in multimodal learning through materials, movement, and communication, and access story telling in ways that work for every learner. All right, so what is story making? Our story making framework follows 4 phases. So there's imagine, play, make, and share. We begin with a focus lesson, which sparks imagination through an objective, mentor texts, modeling, and carefully chosen materials. Then students get to play, explore their ideas, and grow their stories. As they make their stories, students engage in many important skills. They inquire, they plan, they tinker, they seek out resources, they hack and repurpose materials, the beginning stages of revision. They develop fluency and complexify their ideas. And then finally, students have the opportunity to share and publish their stories. And all throughout the process, our lovely teachers are documenting learning through a variety of ways. This year, we've been more intentional with inviting families to join us in the story-making process. Over winter break, we sent home story-making kits filled with a variety of materials for students and their families to explore together. Many families participated and sent their stories back when we returned to school in January. We loved hearing that in many homes, the whole family joined in and had fun creating stories together. So here's some examples up on the slide. All right, so let's hear from our young authors. Our 3 developmental kindergarten teachers and students have brought stories to share with you this evening. So they're just gonna kind of approach the board. I feel like Mrs. Spry, if you wanna come up to this side of the board with Roman. Mrs. Deshay, you can go to the middle. And then Mrs. Snell, you can go right up here towards Anne and Penny. Yes. All right, I just wanted to thank you again for this opportunity. Can we give a round of applause for our young authors and our amazing teachers? They came here tonight to share their important work. One of my friends came off the bus at 8:55 this morning. He was like, "I'm presenting to the board tonight. Super nervous, but I'm excited." So we were ready to go. I hope that this presentation tonight inspires you to see the world the way our students do, and that with a little imagination and a few simple materials, stories can be found everywhere. So thank you so much for allowing us to share. Yay. Yes.
Thank you all for coming in. Bye, guys. No. I was reflecting on the experience that our family had at Carpenter Pre-Primary Center, and just how neat it is to see your kids grow and learn and get ready for kindergarten, and such a neat environment. Next on the list is item 3.3, Michigan Science Teacher Association Award. Penny.
So we have such a special opportunity to recognize Dr. Christy Gayhart. Christy is a science teacher at Jefferson Middle School and has worked in our district for quite some time. And she's here tonight because she was recently honored with an extremely notable achievement. And I'm going to read the exact title so I don't get it wrong. Well, first off, I should say Christy has been a member of the Michigan Science Teachers Association.
27 years.
Okay, a long time, 27 years, and has been very active in that organization. And each year at their annual conference, they give out awards. And one of the most prized awards is really reserved for the best of the best, and Christy won it this year. So the exact title of the award is the George G. Mallinson, am I pronouncing that correctly? I watched the video, Award for Lifetime Achievement in the Field of Science Education. And this is from the Michigan Science Teachers Association. This is a huge deal, and we are so proud and excited for Christy to have won this award. So I want to share just a few more highlights. Again, this award is bestowed upon those who absolutely have made a tremendous impact, not just in their local district, but across the state in science education. Christy's career spans more than 2 decades of teaching and instructional leadership here at MPS, and again, across the region and state. She has helped develop curriculum here locally and at the state level. She has led professional learning as a science teacher leader. She has worked on, again, state-level curriculum projects that have made an impact even beyond Michigan. You've offered professional learning workshops to your colleagues from around the state, and actually have taught adjunct at CMU for several years. In addition to this classroom work, as I said, she has just played a really active role in trying to shape what science education looks like in our state. And when we had the new state standards adopted here several years ago, Christy was really instrumental in helping our region make that transition and leading us here at Midland Public Schools. Christy holds a Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership from CMU, and multiple advanced degrees in educational leadership from Saginaw Valley, as well as a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from Michigan Tech, and I'm sure you're glad you're not there today with all the snow. And again, like I said, has been involved at the state and national level. We are just so incredibly fortunate to have her on our team and really incredibly proud for her to have won this award and been recognized. Congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, they're even standing for you. I love it.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to kind of share a moment with you tonight. This award has allowed me to kind of reflect and then take the time to recognize and appreciate those who have supported me in this journey. Teaching is never a solo endeavor. It's built on collaboration, mentorship, continual learning. I've been lucky to be supported by past and present colleagues, administrators here at MPS, and the community partners that we have, like the Dow Corning Foundation, the Grace A. Dow Foundation. All the foundations we've had have provided a lot of learning opportunities here, and as well as past and present board members. I want to talk about the role that you play, so I've kind of got a little thank you for you as well. One of the most important roles a school board can play is building community partnerships and supporting initiatives that lead to professional growth opportunities for their educators that they serve. When educators have these opportunities, time to collaborate, and encouragement to engage with professional organization, it strengthens not only teachers, but the learning experiences of every student in the MPS classroom and make awards like this possible for our district. I'm grateful to the work in the district that values education and the people who make it happen every day, like everybody in this room. So I'm proud to stand among you and continue the journey together at MPS. Thank you for your recognition tonight. I'm going to. I have a long night yet. I gotta go do my lesson plans for tomorrow.
Congratulations on an amazing award and accomplishment. Thank you.
I'll just offer, if you ever want to go visit a science classroom, a middle school science classroom, I mean, there are many, many fabulous ones in our district for sure. But when you go visit Christy's classroom, you know you're going to see something special. There's always just a little buzz of excitement, and she really pushes students to think deeply and not just understand science on the surface, but to really understand it conceptually, and just really, really proud to have her on our team.
Thank you. Item 3.4, strategic planning update. We're going to talk more about the strategic plan just in one more agenda item, but remind the public why we did this. One, went through this process to define purpose and objectives for our district. I really see the strategic plan as a foundation for goal setting, and this is kind of the culmination of the board's work and our handshake as we turn over priorities and the strategic framework to district leadership. And then I just also want to say, we've established a lot of working teams through this process with our community, between the community, our board, and the district leadership. And just want to say thank you to everybody that's had a hand in shaping our strategic framework and strategic plan. Had well over 3,000 individual responses to that plan that inform this plan and the outcome. So I really sincerely hope that we continue to have those working teams, continue that great community input as we start to implement the plan. So item 3.5 is for action, and it's approval of our strategic plan. Are we going to throw it up on this?
Yes, you have it. Sorry about that. It's also in the board packet so that you can see the images. While Sarah's pulling that up, this is very, very similar to what you saw at our last workshop. There was a lot of conversation about those value statements. So you'll notice, as you could see in your board packet, that we shifted to the word accountability over trust based on the feedback we received. And we believe that this value statement as written embodies what you all were thinking as a way to still note that trust is really important to us and that it showed up in our data set multiple times, but focus more on something that we can tangibly control, which is how we are accountable. So we do have those same value statements then of accountability, which was, the changed one, and then the 3 remain of belonging, collaboration, and excellence. And we had the little extra tip of putting them in alphabetical order, so it's A, B, C, E. Hopefully we will be able to remember those quickly. The priorities and objectives have remained the same. It's just that the imagery looks a little different. And if you move to the next slide, this is, again, before it was that circular representation with the boxes. This is now a 2-page document where we still can see those priority areas for the 4 segments of academic excellence and student experience, collaborative culture, operational excellence, and infrastructure and facilities. The companion document, which is the MPS graduate, the profile of a graduate. This is fairly similar to what you saw last time, graphically a little bit different. And I just want to point out something that's particularly wonderful about this. When you look at it on the surface, you might not feel it's highly MPS branded, but we heard clearly through the strategic planning feedback that our community wants us to be a strong community partner. Community hub was a term that was used many times. And you all articulated in your dialogue about the graduate profile that we can't do this alone. This has to happen in partnership. So you'll notice that the imagery you see is really reflective of our community. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Katie did a great job bringing this together for us. Upon your approval, we will begin using this graduate profile. Much of the language will start to infuse the way we work and the documents we use, and then we will officially launch in the fall with appropriate messaging, sharing with teachers and students, and start really building this into our programmatic decisions. What questions might you have about this before you decide to approve? Okay.
Oh, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve item 3.5?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Horowitz, support by McFarland. Any further discussion or questions? Just want to again say thank you to everybody that put a lot of time into this. I know it's extra work. I really appreciate the responsiveness to feedback and collaboration with our community. So, all in favor of approving item 3.5, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 3.6, new school program. Ken and Lucas.
Yeah, I have the opportunity to introduce Lucas Pellis. Lucas will be talking about putting our strategic plan in action tonight as we propose a new school that would be located at Fast Ice. I'll let him take it away from there. Lucas.
Thank you, Ken. Good evening, school board and community and administration. So as Ken talked about, this comes on the heels of the strategic plan, and we feel that there are some really awesome opportunities that we can do to meet some needs. Part of the process, we realized that we weren't meeting the needs of all of our students. There are students who choose to leave us. There are students who don't finish for a variety of reasons. Over the last year, this chart shows the number of students who have left our district for other alternative and virtual programs around the state. Let that sink in a little bit, because it really amounts to 271 students if we include elementary up on through. So that's roughly $2.7 million in FTE that we lose because these students haven't found a home here at MPS. And this proposal aims to strive to combat that and create a new opportunity. We had a great mini summit. We called it this summer with educators and administrators looking at the different options. And we have a ton of great options at MPS. We realized that we were missing a couple of things. One was a fully virtual program, because students, as you could see on the previous slide, they're leaving for some fully virtual options. We also don't have any real alternative options that are different than what we currently have at our two high schools. And so we set out to figure out how we can bring those two pieces in to kind of round out the slate of offerings that we do here at MPS. And so this really is an opportunity for growth, because we want to provide the students of MPS with what they need. And that we talked about that in the strategic proposal, or in the strategic plan. And we want to create a new school at Fast Ice. It's a beautiful facility and it has a lot of opportunity that we can take students and create something new and wonderful for them. The objective here is really just to meet them where they're at. In order to do that, it would be a new school that has a variety of modalities of serving these students. It would be very flexible and fast at changing. And as you know, I oversee several programs here at MPS. One of those is PATHS. PATHS doesn't go away. PATHS reverts a little bit to its original foundation of trying to bridge that gap in a school of a hybrid approach. So face-to-face classes and virtual classes, focusing ideally on some of the CTE tracks to help those students regain their structure there at the school. The other students then would go to this new school, yet to be named. We don't have a name for it. But it really initially becomes two alternative pathways. So one is a true alternative program, and another is a flexible learning program. The way that we're looking at that, the alternative program ideally would serve students in grades 11 to 12 who are severely undercredited, that are at risk at graduation, and then in risk of dropping out. And we know that the diploma still holds as a gatekeeper for a better life and a better opportunity. If they drop out, we fail them. And so we're looking at how we structure the credit requirements and what we do at this school to create those flexible options for them. Likewise, down in our flexible learning program, starting out eventually 6 to 12 and moving down into elementary because that request is coming in more and more often. Having an opportunity for some students, for whatever reason that they might choose, for an alternative or a flexible option. Again, the credit requirements will be ironed out after the approval. We need the approval before we go down those roads. The way that we're looking at it initially for both programs would be to keep our Edgenuity as our immediate turnkey. We could start this next year because we don't have to get anything new. Eventually, though, the idea, especially for the alternative, is a proficiency-based, competency-based, so that students it's not a matter of how much time they've sat in a seat or that they know everything in this one class. It's about the standards. It's about the Michigan Merit Curriculum, which is not about classes. It's about standards. And we would build this program to serve those needs for those students. Likewise, with the flexible learning program, again, starting out with Edgenuity, that's what we have right now. We want to branch that out eventually for all of our students into other online providers. And then because we have fantastic staff who are innovative and who can do this, create our own online programs. Wean ourselves off of some of these other providers and build something that our students can truly access. And we have the teachers here that are really that own those classes and provide support for our students. Here's the proposed timeline. We're down right now on bullet point 3 there under spring of 26. Seeking your approval. We know that won't happen tonight. This is just giving you the information. We've talked with the state officials on the process for this with opening a new school, a new EEM. We have all the things in line for that to take care of once it's approved. And then it's really the rest of the summer is going to be equipping the building with furniture and the equipment that we need to have staff over there to allow students to come in to that building so that they can receive their education over there. Our idea is to pilot just 9th through 12th grade for this next school year. We want to see proof of concept. We want to make sure that this is what our students in our community needs as one of the next steps in growing and moving forward. In that school year, then we'd begin marketing because the school could then open up in the following year to all the students in the surrounding counties that would be able to be served by this school if they so chose. So the opportunities that we're expecting for our students different flexible learning options for them. Not the same thing that we've been just trying to do over and over again. Better retention and service of our at-risk students that we have in our district, enroll students and families who have left the district, and attract new students into the district, and then create partnerships with community organizations. And that strategic plan that was also talked about. And there are really fantastic ways that you can bridge the gap educationally with these types of flexible opportunities. Here's our estimated student count and associated revenue. In the first year, we're looking at piloting just 25 students. The asterisk is there because these are students who are already in our district. They're not new to the district, but they are struggling. They might be severely credit deficient. They might be totally disengaged and need something different to re-energize them. So those students who are already there. A lot of the expense comes from the furniture, from the staffing. We'll need staffing there. We're looking at a couple of teachers, a manager there, and I will directly oversee the whole program at that site. The revenue comes obviously from the FTE of those 25 students that the state pays in the foundation allowance. And then as we move forward in the next coming years, looking at incremental growth to make sure that we are doing this right. And then you can see where the revenue and the expenses match up. What questions do you have?
I'm going to phrase this as a question, but it's more because we've heard this before in our committees. It's more for folks watching and listening. That chart you showed of students we're losing, those aren't students who are leaving for another in-person K-12 opportunity. They're looking for an educational model that we don't presently offer.
Correct.
We're trying to provide an educational offering in an existing facility. So when you say a new school, that's a new school on paper.
It's a new school for the state.
Correct. I get it. But when people hear new school, they think something other than you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay? You're not talking about building a new building.
Nope.
Okay. We're talking about licensing or getting approval to operate in a facility we already own.
Correct.
Okay. So those are my questions that were really to clarify what.
Yes, and on that chart, let me run back to that. These are just very noticeable schools like that I know are virtual schools. There are other local districts around us that have virtual programs that have taken our students. I can't parse that out on the, from the data set. These are just students that we know went to alternative virtual programs in the last year alone. What other questions?
Have you received feedback from any of these families as to what prompted them to leave so that we know with this new school we're in a place where we can serve the needs that weren't being met previously?
I have. Anecdotally, some of it is the credit amount. So I had several of my PATH students last year that were doing really well. They just needed so many credits to be able to finish. One of my students is now in the Marine Corps. He left us for a program that had far less credits than us, still at the state minimum, and he was able to graduate and enter the Marine Corps. That's one of the primary drivers.
John, I think you make a good point that, and correct me if I'm incorrect in the technicalities, what we are trying to do in creating a new school needs to be a new school. The nature of this learning environment and the conditions that we're going to create, the potential graduation requirements will be different from a diploma from Midland High and Dow High. So it warrants, the state has a portal you need to go in and jump through all of those hoops. So it is a new school in that way. And I just want to be clear that it's not like we can just create another PATHS program with a different flavor to it. We've tried that. It works for some. We're still not hitting the mark. And this statement at the top of the slide, I think, is really important for us to embrace, that until we can really ensure that we've done our best to provide a learning experience for every student who belongs at Midland Public Schools, who lives in our community, we're not done. Our work's not done until we figure that out. So this is our next best idea that's grounded in evidence, and we're excited to give it a go.
But when we say new school,
Yes.
that's a regulatory concept.
Yes, it
Okay.
is, 100%.
It'd
Not a
be at
physical
Fast
structural.
location.
Yes.
That's what makes this work.
Yes.
Thank you.
What other questions do you have for Lucas or Ken?
I don't think I have any questions. I just appreciate the innovative approach and trying something new. This was one of the things that we talked about during the strategic planning process, and one of the things that we talked about in the workshop was actually we have to be brave and try new things, and we might fail. That's okay. That's why you're starting with 25 students, but it's an opportunity for us to reach more families, serve more families in line with the strategic plan that we put together.
I agree. I'll just pair to that. You know, it's interesting that tonight you approved the strategic plan, which embraces this sort of concept. I hope you see this as, you know, our team has a really good pulse of what's happening in the district. And so these conversations have been going on for a while now. And, you know, I gave us permission to get moving down this road of exploration. And it was just a really beautiful thing then that our community said they wanted us to be braver and that you all agreed. So the timing works out well.
So when will it come back for full approval?
Yeah, next month.
Okay.
And we are on a timeline, of course, as with all state processes. So we'll bring this back for your consideration for action next month. Again, we won't have every fine detail in place for you by then. Will unfold quickly once we get approval. And Ken and Lucas have found a really great partner within the Michigan Department of Ed who is going to guide us through this and make sure what we're doing fully meets their expectations and that we are fully leveraging any of that space to continue to be innovative and creative and create something that's special to us and meets the needs of our students and families.
Excellent. Any other final questions, comments? All right. Thanks, Lucas.
Thank you. Thank you for consideration.
All right. Next on the agenda is item 3.7, the facility planning update. We have tonight Stephen Gunther from GMB, and then I think Kenny Babinski is going to join us, and then Kathy Fuse-Hobum from the community side of the team for the facility planning team. Thanks all.
Good. Okay. Good. All right. So good evening, everybody. Just a quick introduction. I'm Stephen Gunther from GMB. This is
Kenny Babinski, Clark Construction.
Kathy Fuse-Hobum, representing your advisory committee.
So we're here on behalf of the collective GMB, Clark, Three Rivers team from the facility assessment and the steering committee who's helping through this entire process as we go forward. So we're going to start tonight with the facility assessment review. One thing I do want to take a moment and kind of set some ground rules for what this facility assessment is and what you'll see throughout this presentation. First, it is a facility condition assessment. It represents an as-is non-invasive review of the district's buildings and physical assets. The assessment team evaluated items such as roofs, the building envelope, mechanical and electrical systems, and interior building components based on site observations, available drawings, and industry standard replacement timelines as published through organizations such as ASHRAE, BOMA, and equipment manufacturers. One way to think of the building assessment is if you were to take that building and flip it upside down, everything that stays in that building, the roof, the walls, the infrastructure, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, that's what this system evaluates. Items that would shake out, like some of your furniture and stuff like that, that's not part of the facility assessment portion. It's also important to note that the team that conducted this assessment was really a fresh set of eyes. while I live in the district, Kenny lives in the district, we know some of the background of what has been happening in the past and whatnot. The assessment team that completed this assessment was not privy to that information. Kind of treat it like a horse with blinders on. Like they were focused on the buildings that they were on without the historical background and political nature of that. This helped ensure that the evaluation remained objective and focused solely on the current condition of those facilities. Another key point is that this assessment represents only one piece of the larger planning process. It evaluates the physical condition of buildings. It does not include educational programming needs or a full site or civil analysis at the moment, because site and civil will be out in the coming weeks now that the snow melt has happened and they can make their observations. Yeah, hopefully. Those additional pieces will ultimately help inform the broader facilities planning discussion. Most importantly, this assessment does not represent a proposed long-term facility plan or potential bond proposal. Instead, it identifies the total scope of facility needs that exist today as the district and community can understand the full picture before determining priorities and next steps. I also want to acknowledge something that became really clear during the process. MPS has done an exceptional job at maintaining its facilities. The level of care and maintenance invested over the years has allowed many systems to operate well beyond their typical service life. This result is that many components are now approaching or have reached the end of those extended life cycles at roughly the same time, not because they were neglected, but because they have been maintained long enough to extract the maximum life out of them. This type of condition is not uncommon of school districts across the state, but this assessment helps to document where those systems are today so the district and community can have an informed conversations about the future. As we proceed through this, you'll see that the totals presented tonight are large, but it's important to remember that this represents the full inventory of needs identified across all buildings, 17 buildings across the next 10-year time frame. It is not a recommendation that everything be done at once, but rather a starting point in understanding the district's facilities. So with that, we can get started. So from an overall district facility assessment standpoint, we've broken it down with the identified facility assessment need over the next 10 years, and we've bucketed the categories 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years, 7 to 10 years, and then a total over that entire time frame. So identified needs across all 17 of the buildings in the next 1 to 3 years is $231 million. 4 to 6 years, $194 million, and about $123 million over in the 7 to 10 year category, representing the next 10 years a recommendation for almost $550 million. One thing to point out, though, is that the civil and site team are working on completing their assessment with the snow hopefully melting for good. And so that will be added into these buckets, and that'll cover infrastructure items across the site side of it, along with playgrounds, parking lots, and stuff like that. Broken down across each building, we've identified the need in those same categories at every single one of the buildings throughout the district. So you'll see here that Northeast, for example, has the highest recommended need in the 1 to 3 year category. There are some larger categories in the 4 to 6 year, I'd say Jefferson or Dow High. But what's important to note about that is that Jefferson, the recommendations of repair and need in that building are spread across every single building category that we looked at. Jefferson and Dow, where those spike in the 4 to 6 year time frame, those are from an interior finish recommendation standpoint, and just due to the size of those buildings, it's a large, start applying $1 per square foot to those, it sums up. But I do want to point out that the interior finishes is more than just like paint on a wall to make it look pretty. It does capture the aging and worn out floors, casework, ceilings, doors and frames, and even in some locations where like the partitions between classrooms might be like what was supposed to be a removable partition in one day, which is just not conducive to the current learning environment. And then additionally, as you start touching different building systems, interior renovation is an inherent part of that. You can't replace sanitary piping under the ground without tearing up the floor. You can't put new ductwork or piping above the ceiling without taking out portions of the ceiling.
Thanks, Stephen. Again, I'm Kenny Babinski. I'm a senior project manager with Clark Construction Company. In the first few slides, Stephen reviewed our facility assessment in terms of total cost. Here, we're sharing in a little different aspect, that being cost per square foot. We feel this is a very important metric or graph to share, just because it's more of an apples to apples comparison. Sometimes the total cost perspective can be misleading, as larger buildings naturally cost more to repair and renovate, or smaller buildings with maybe a more modest total cost could be in a worse condition from a cost per square foot. And lastly, schools with the higher cost per square foot likely have more significant infrastructure needs in relation to its building size. So again, looking at the information gathered from our assessment in just a different lens to remove the building size as a factor, again, to understand the investment needs relative to its building size itself. So a couple important bars here to touch on: the Midland Community Stadium. Not to be confused with the recent renovations performed, but you can see in the 1 to 3 year needs almost a $500 per square foot. That was only taken on about 6,700 square feet, so very small space, the locker rooms and the concession stand. But you can see that large cost per square foot really represents the total investment needed or assumed based on the square foot. And then another one I want to point out, the Carpenter pre-primary. You can see the immediate needs of 1 to 3 and 4 to 6 are right in the $200 per square foot, and almost double some of the adjacent buildings there. But really, that's that smaller square foot number, leading to a high cost and needs for an infrastructure standpoint. Here again, another chart based on cost per square foot, just to level the playing field even more. This, instead of divvying out between the different time frames, this is just a 10-year overall look at between buildings from a cost per square foot. Again, interesting to note, for instance, Carpenter pre-primary and Dow High School, the cost per square foot are roughly the same, but yet the buildings are significantly different in size. And I only say this because it's a helpful tool that can be used when assessing and figuring out the future plans, just to look at it from building to building and the total potential investment needed, again, in relation to its building size.
And one thing I'll note, apologize for not mentioning it earlier, the dollars that have been worked into the assessment cost here reflect all direct and indirect costs. So it includes the actual component that you're purchasing and buying, plus labor, installation, CM, AE, contingency, permitting fees. All of that is baked into that total number to reflect a more realistic, like, this is actually what it's going to take to get there, combining both, the above the line, the below the line metrics for typical cost. So what we've done here is then take it down to, so you can kind of graphic or visually see where the different buckets of the assessment break down based on year. So you can see, like, for example, in 1 to 3 year need, the majority of that, over 30%, is a mechanical identified need, along with plumbing and electrical. So that's a large part of that. Those things that the last time I was here, we talked about the behind the scenes things that you don't normally see. Think of your knees or your hips or all of that continue to be there in age and wear out, and at some point they do need to be replaced for it to keep going. And then you can see, as you go through each of the progressions, just where the recommended need changes across each of those categories. So we've done a quick example here just to kind of represent, like, what does that 1 to 3 year need by category look like, and putting an actual dollar amount to it. So you can see the two highest are interior finish side of it and mechanical. So mechanical across the building, across the district, almost 90 million, and the interior finish pretty high, between 50 and 60 million. But what I wanted to point out with this here, so you can get an understanding of where everything shakes out, is if we take that mechanical recommendation and we distribute it, show it across all buildings, you can see that the mechanical need is present across all of the facilities that are there, with the highest, being between the secondary schools, which didn't, historically didn't have the bond investment that some of the elementary schools had. And so you can see Jefferson, Northeast Dow, Midland High all have a pretty, high mechanical, assessment need within the next 1 to 3 years. If we take that interior renovation side of it, though, that bulk of it, that's at Northeast. So you can see, like, when you start breaking these categories down by building and across the need, you can see that, interior finish at Northeast is capturing, renovation work to meet current needs and, ceilings and tile and all of that. The 1 to 3 year need of that distribution is at Northeast there. So as we wrap up the facility assessment portion of this, I do want to go through a couple key takeaways that we've had throughout this entire thing. So the first one, again, reiterating what we kind of talked about before, the buildings have been well maintained. Most needs reflect normal life cycle replacement of building systems rather than from a deferred maintenance standpoint. While the assessment does identify $549 million of capital renewal needs across 17 buildings over a 10-year time planning horizon. And then these are planning level estimates used to help prioritize, future investments. Northeast Middle School reflects the largest near-term capital investment, driven primarily by building systems and infrastructure approaching the end of their life cycle. The largest recommended investments involve mechanical systems and core building infrastructure, particularly at the secondary level. Civil and site evaluations are currently being worked through with the civil and site team and will be finalized and provided as an update to this report. And then it is infrastructure only and does not include furniture, instructional technology, or potential programmatic changes that are required. And last thing, one thing I do want to point out is we have one of the facility assessment team members from the GMB team. He's worked in building trades teacher in schools in the past, worked as a contractor in the past, currently handles a lot of our construction administration. And he reviewed all of the buildings, and he had nothing but positive things to say about the maintenance from the MPS staff for the buildings that you guys have. He, paraphrasing what he said, every school district needs the facility staff that MPS has. I wish more were like them. And he's worked with quite a few across the state. So I'll end it there from a facility assessment and open it to some Q&A.
So as we look at this, obviously there's big numbers here. We can't do it all. How do you kind of talk to us about your process of prioritization and how that works, especially considering that we've engaged our community and established a team to help us?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we'll lean into that in the steering team conversation, but Kathy said she wants to.
I haven't been in school for a while. Hi. I think that's a spectacular question, and I think that was the first question that we went through when we saw some of the numbers. So looking at the buildings and exactly what they need, how to maintain them, and how to make them work was the responsibility of the construction team. The responsibility of the community team is to help you decide what should be the priority. How should you look at this and lend a hand? So one of the things I found on the community group is just such a wide diversity of thought process. So the group is not a yes group. The group isn't a yes think. It is coming at education from a variety of different places, from being a parent to being a business owner to being a community member, all the way across, and then coming to the table with some pretty strong ideas on what's the most important. So we have a group that thinks the financial aspect is the most important, and that's what we should look at. How much money do we have? Let's look at it from a money standpoint. Some members approach from a learning and a student experience perspective. Some people bring in the safety and the security aspect as part of the, hey, we really need to think about that. And then, some others are visionary. This is what the school should look like in 40 years. This is where we should be going. So I think at the end of the day, we end up with how do you balance the affordability with the goal of preparing students for their future. Those are the two things we want to bring to the table. So that's what the community group is going to help do, and we're right in the process of it. But to your point, Phil, those are big numbers, and how you spend however much you can spend, how do we get to yes? And there are people on the committee that are, voted no the first time, not to fund this. So it's, again, very diverse and allowing us the opportunity to come to you with a variety of perspectives. This won't be an easy decision. It won't be simple. But at the end of the day, you'll have a consensus on where we think you should go.
I'm going to ask you a real blunt question, and it's probably not as spectacular as Phil's question. $100 million in the next 1 to 3 years for Northeast, is it worth it? Or in your opinion, is money better spent building a new building? And why?
You want to do that? Sure. Okay. I was going to say, I can answer that one.
I can let Kathy do it as well, then I don't have to. I think the money is better invested in building a new facility. I think looking at that building and the amount of infrastructure that is there that requires replacement, it's going to be one of those things where you touch one thing and it's going to touch the next thing and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing all the way throughout the entire building. Just if you were to build a building of that identical size, you'd be at $132 million or something like that, right around there. And that building is slightly larger than what it needs, from a utilization standpoint now. So I think it's worth looking at further to finding a way of building new instead of investing the money to keep that exactly as it is today. Do you want to add more?
I would have said along the process, the question probably goes back to, do we need in this area? Do we feel we need from a community standpoint? And is that the best use of our money? Again, affordability balanced. So it might make more sense from a construction standpoint to build a new building. I guess I would, allow the process to work a little bit longer and say, is that the best use of our money? Let's do it that way. Thank you. All right.
This may not be a fair question because you may not be at this point in the process, but when you say build a new building, are you talking about building a new middle school? Or are you talking about building another new building and repurposing existing buildings into a middle school? That's French for one high school. I'm just,
to be determined.
Wasn't clear.
To be determined in upcoming steering committee meetings.
Okay.
Just to jump in here, the steering committee, and Kathy did a beautiful job of explaining how we've brought together a really great group. These first 3 meetings have really been setting the stage for this facility assessment. Stop me if I'm overstepping, but I think we're just organically getting there. there were some experiences that the steering team had to help set their mind about what the future of education looks like. Again, so beautifully articulated by Kathy, sort of managing this tension between who we think we really need to be for students into the future and what's possible for us. And that is the grand challenge of the team. So at the next meeting, which is later this month, agenda yet to be finally determined, but we're gonna dive in because we need to. And I just want to remind us that the charge to that team was recommendations back to you as a board, not just for right now, but what is the long-term, midterm, and short-term plan.
So Kathy, 3-4 weeks ago when you had your first meeting, Penny and I had a conversation before that first meeting about personally showing up. Whether it was the right or wrong answer, I consciously made the choice purposely not to go. And that was because I wanted to make sure that the committee felt empowered and not like they were being told what to do by a board member. Mm-hmm. With that being said, what do you need from us? Is it
from a committee standpoint?
From a committee standpoint.
Good question, Phil. I would think enough time, allow us to do our job and make some, have some thought process around that. And then I would think too, guidance from maybe what is possible and what isn't possible, and allow us to get us to the best, all of you, to the best result we possibly can for the school and the kids. That would be the best thing. But I think we need a little bit more time right now just to understand, again, you saw big numbers. We've seen the big numbers, and, we're going to have to spend some numbers. Mm-hmm. Just where are we going to do it to get the biggest bang for our buck?
Yep.
Stephen, if you could move to the timeline, that might be helpful, and then we can toggle back if we need to. So in part also to answer the question, and our team is at the steering meetings. We sit at a table in the back for a similar reason. We want to be there as a resource and to listen and understand how this is unfolding, but not to influence. Part of what we've mapped out here is kind of a cadence where the steering team will meet. There'll be a report back to you as a board. You'll engage in some dialogue so they get a pulse of where you're at and you're thinking. They'll take that back. So this reciprocal connection that sort of builds us toward ultimate recommendations to you. And so we would plan to bring members of the steering team back for the next several board meetings and again, have this kind of dialogue. Whether that will be Kathy, we're not sure. Mm-hmm. We kind of glossed over some of the steering team slides, but I think you get the gist of where they're going. And maybe if you'll just go back to the purpose slide so they can see that for themselves.
Whoops. I think one thing to point out is the district has gone through the strategic planning process, right? And the strategic plan has identified some facility assessment items as in there, financial stewardship, long-term facility plans, safety, belonging and well-being, modern, future-ready facilities. Those are some of the things that are out of that strategic plan. The GMB and Clark team have conducted a facility assessment that looked at, mechanical and electrical systems, roofs, and life safety and ADA accessibility. And then there was an educational and programmatic assessment completed at the same time, that had outcomes that were focused on infrastructure and facilities, space, capacity and storage, collaboration and social emotional well-being, safety and belonging, and CTE programming. And where this steering committee, they're right in the center. They are working to bring all of those things together into one cohesive plan as we move forward. So the purpose of this committee is to serve as a representative, community-based advisory body that guides the development of the district's facility plan and the future of Midland Public Schools, assisting the Board of Ed in its final decision-making so that those decisions lead to meaningful, future-ready learning experiences for every student. The outcome that they're working towards is a unified board-supported facility roadmap that connects vision to buildings, priorities to funding, and strategy to action. And some of the things they'll work through is aligning facilities to strategy, define clear project priorities, again, touching on those short, mid, and long-term facility priorities, create a funding framework to clearly identify when and why to utilize, if it's general fund dollars, sinking fund dollars, or bond funding, and then establish the next steps. The planning timeline we've already touched on, so we're at the red star right now. And so the steering committee, they've been on a journey as we've started this whole thing too, not just a jump, right into numbers and dollars and stuff. There is a journey that they're on as well to understand, where has education come from and where is education going? Because all of that weighs into how are these facilities being set up for the future success. And so we'll go through some of the things that the GMB team has kind of shared with them as it touches on education. And so some benchmarking and background that have been shared is really this chart identifying where the 19th century learner was versus the 21st century learner. And additionally, how schools were utilized in each of those, for each of those learners. So 19th century, change was really slow. And then 20th century, change came in waves. And 21st century learner, change is exponential and constant. And you always have something at your fingertips. And we're trying to prepare students for, careers that aren't even yet invented. And so really pushing towards that goal. And historically, schools were just simple institutions, and they more and more become more of this community hub, which I think has been identified in the strategic plan that was discussed earlier. And so part of what we've worked through is really schools have continued, education is always there while the world around you is constantly evolving. And so when schools stay in the same format that they always have been, the world around you is changing. So this was a form of cell phone at one point. Whoops. Mobile technology. This was somebody's Kindle, Spotify or an iPod.
Some of this isn't funny.
This was the storage of your cloud system.
Oh, nice.
Your database. Text messaging, Facebook, Instagram, and Netflix and streaming services. So all of these things are changing around you, and you find ways to prepare students to constantly prepare for those evolving changes. I'll let you touch on.
Yeah, I mean, if you really think about the classroom of the future or the experience of the future, because I'm not necessarily convinced it is a classroom, immersive experiences where a hologram of Betsy Ross can show you how she made the flag, that's not out of the realm of possibility. There are so many options coming towards us. Now, do I think that there should be some hands-on learning too? I think we're seeing hands-on learning and tech and training and things like that coming down the pipe. But honestly, with AI in the business world and in education, it's just changing everything on a minute-by-minute basis. So looking forward, having even the ability to look forward 10 years, if nothing else, how much flexibility can we build into our current solution, our current affordable solution, to allow us that flexibility to move forward.
Great. And then we've also touched with the committee on an understanding of school finances and bonds. And so Anna did a great job connecting with the committee, so I'll let her cover school finance.
Thank you. Just going to go through a quick overview of kind of what we presented to the committee just to get everybody on the same base. One of the things we talked about right off the bat was our foundation allowance, that our enrollment times our foundation allowance that we receive from the state is our core revenue. We discussed about how Proposal A, that came about in 1994, completely changed how schools were funded, and it created the per pupil system that we're used to now. And it also made it so that we have to go to the community for funding initiatives. That local 18 mil non-homestead levy is required for full funding from the state, and the state won't make up revenues that are not collected via non-homestead millage. This core revenue is what goes into our general fund, which 83.5% of that budget goes directly to our people between salaries and benefits. And our funding system in Michigan is set up in such a way that we can't really save our way back up to these large capital improvements. However, we do save money every year from this general fund for capital improvements, but it's not set up in such a way to be able to allow us to save up to make major financial implications. Looking at our funds, an operating fund, a bond fund, a sinking fund are all legally separate funds. What you can use for an operating fund, you can't necessarily use bond sinking fund. Bonds you can't use for operating fund for your people. Sinking funds you can't use for your operating fund expenses. Everything is legally separate. We do have an annual audit every year that would go through any of these funds to make sure that we are maintaining that legal separation and meeting all legal requirements. So what happens without major capital funding? We see aging infrastructure. You have a tendency to have increased emergency repairs. There's higher long-term cost. You might get to a point of having to have deferred maintenance. And there's ultimately an impact on the learning environment. The key takeaways that we gave to this group were that Michigan schools are funded primarily per pupil. Operating revenue funds people and programs. Again, 83.5% of our budget goes directly to our people. Bond sinking funds and operating funds are all separate. There's mandated financial accountability and transparency for these funds, and large capital improvements require dedicated funding mechanisms.
Great, thank you. And then the steering committee also heard from PFM, Bond Council, to be able to talk through some of the different funding mechanisms that are available. And so I'm not Brody from PFM, but I'll do my best to summarize all that he talked about.
Anna can chime in if needed.
Yeah. And so sinking funds and bonds are two different funding mechanisms, and each one has things that you can and you cannot spend money on. So for example, neither fund can be used to be spent on operating expenses, but both funds can be used for the purchases of buses. Repairs can be made via a sinking fund, but cannot be made via a bond. New construction and renovations are available in both funding mechanisms. And then, as another example of infrastructure, most types can be handled in a sinking fund, and a bond can handle all of the infrastructure. PFM touched on, what is a sinking fund and how a sinking fund can be used, and they also presented to the group what a sinking fund could mean from a real dollar standpoint, given the current tax base. So a 1 mil sinking fund spread over 5 years would be about $16 million total, about $3 million every year. A 2 mil sinking fund is approximately double that. Over 5 years is $32 million total and about $6 million each year. If a sinking fund is spread over a 10-year period, 1 mil is $33 million and 2 mil is $67 million. They also touched on the different types of bond options that there could be, and tried to look at what is the best kind of bang for your buck for each of those bond options. So a 1 mil bond would be about $98 million, and then be a 20-year bond term. A 2 mil bond, $165 million over a 25-year bond term. And then a 3 mil bond would generate about $237 million over a 25-year bond term. Kathy touched on some of her reflections as a steering team member for how these funds can be used.
Okay. Lots of zeros there. Again, I'll go back to the balance that we need to achieve between affordability and really creating future learners and what that looks like. It may or may not be doing some different things with buildings. I wouldn't automatically jump to its building. Most of the information in the presentation is maintenance based, right? Would that be fair? But as a community, we want to support the schools certainly as much as we possibly can. And I think we can give you some palatable ideas that, based on your expertise, maybe would fit into your program long term. So we'll try and do that.
And as we kind of close up today, open it up to Q&A across all the topics that we talked about tonight. But I would like, we talked kind of that back and forth between the board and the steering committee, so everyone gets to know each other and understand where everybody's at. Kind of some questions to you as a board that, Kathy can take back to the steering committee, we can take back to the steering committee. I'll ask them all and then feel free to respond to any of them. What would you like to identify as short, mid, and long-term goals? What would you like to see the committee study and review further? And what do you value? What are you looking to see as the outcome of this entire process?
Does it fit into one of these? I'm not sure exactly, but one thing that I was thinking of as you guys were talking, and then Anna, as you mentioned, this cost of deferred maintenance. In your process and working with the steering committee, Stephen, and even Anna, your information that you have, will you be able to provide them with estimates or benchmarks or just resources so that they can consider if this is not updated, if this is not renovated, if we don't build new here, we still have a cost. There will still be a cost when the system fails, or there will still be a cost of maintenance, and it might be higher or lower, who knows, depending on what that system is that we're talking about. But I just want to make sure that as options are being considered, we're considering the cost, of course, of renovating, repair, or building, but also the cost of not doing those things and how they compare.
Noted. And I think we're collectively trying to work on defining where that's at. And I think the starting point is kind of, if you were to say, if we do nothing, the recommendation in that 1 to 3 category is just going to switch to the 4 to 6 year category, the 7 to 10 year category. But there's some unknowns in that too, right? Like just recent, a couple of years ago, Dow boilers that need to be replaced, right? That's something that is one of those things that is is a item that can just come out of nowhere, right? And so you can't put a pinpoint exactly when that's going to happen, but we can say, hey, all these items that are in a 1 to 3 year category, at some point something could happen to them. That will eventually reach a point where something will.
It's actually a great example, and I'll just remind you all that Dow boiler project was 800,000. Close? Yeah.
Around.
Okay, I'm getting more. Yeah.
Around the 900,000.
So yeah, unbudgeted.
There's nothing that says we can't do both a sinking fund and issue bonds, correct? You do both at the same time.
Just in terms of goals or what I'd love to see the committee study and reviews, given what we have right now, and it sounds like this is already some of the stuff you guys are talking about, how do we, if we were to take just the existing spaces, how can we best use what we already have? How can we, whether that's shifting who's in a particular building or how a building is used, just how can we be most efficient with the resources that are already available to us? I think it would be helpful to have that feedback from the steering committee and in terms of you guys looking at those things as a board so that we, as we're making decisions on, as we're making decisions, we know that you guys have kind of fleshed out through your group, we've thought about using this building in this way. Maybe we could use this in another way, or maybe we can look at, different ways of using our existing resources so that we can be most efficient and also focus on what might be priority based on how we can best use our existing spaces.
And I think that's a key component in the entire process. I would say let's maybe back up one step and say, what are we trying to accomplish? What are the priorities from a learning standpoint or a facility standpoint that we think will help these children grow and do things like that, and then look at our existing facilities and utilize them to the best of that driver. So sometimes facilities, it's like Cinderella. You try and smush your foot into a glass slipper and it doesn't quite fit. If we can start back one step with the what are we trying to accomplish from a conceptual basis? Where do we really think school's going to go? Then instead of using the facility to make the guiding decisions, let the facilities we have fit into the long-term vision. Does that make sense? Okay, it's just a little step backwards, but if we can start there, it might create a better solution for you.
As part of that vision, and John kind of alluded to it, is there any exploration or conversation about transitioning to a single high school model, or do we continue status quo with 2 high schools? And I know I'm not expecting a clear answer right now, but I just would like to know at some point we've got to have that conversation.
I think the way that Kathy started to frame it was maybe best how you inform that discussion is what are the learning outcomes that you have to achieve for our community? Mm-hmm. And then the next question after that is, what do the facilities have to be, and how do you have to establish your programming to achieve those learning outcomes, right? Yeah. So I think if we do it in the order that Kathy was talking about, with the learning outcomes first, that question should naturally fall out as part of the discussion, I would think.
I think the other piece for me in regards to that is the fiscal responsibility piece, and how that plays into the affordability. And trying to duplicate things is expensive. And so if you have limited resources and you know that the community has already said from a large bond standpoint that that's probably not going to happen, how do we then, and I'd love to see the committee, what their thoughts are on if we can only get a small amount of money and we need to be fiscally responsible and this is what we want for students, how do all those things come together in a way that provides the equity that we need and serves our students, so without wasting money. Exactly. Because with $550 million, we can't waste a single penny.
Yeah, agreed.
I will also say, there's a lot of things that come out of this that are very negative. You see deferred maintenance and you see $550 million, and that's not even talking about new CTE or anything else. That's just the 17 buildings that we already have to maintain. But we're at a point where we're going to have to continue to make really innovative and creative decisions. And to me, as somebody who's likes to do that visioning piece, right? That some of your people that's exciting to me. I mean, I think this is truly an opportunity to lay out some different scenarios and be like, well, if we only have our general fund, this is what we're going to have to do. Right. But if we could get this much money, then we could go here. Or if we can get that much money, then we can do this, right? And so trying to kind of parse that out a little bit, I think it's an opportunity space for sure.
I think that one thing that I'm really looking to the steering committee for is that community feedback, right? Because we're only a small number of people. And so I think having all those diverse perspectives and really getting to, talk through those and understand what's behind them, I think will be beneficial to us, because I don't think we've had the real opportunity to do that as much as we've listened to our community and tried to listen to our community and tried to solicit feedback. I don't think we've had the opportunity to really have like, hour-long conversations with everybody that we've spoken with. And I think that as a steering committee, you have a better opportunity to understand where people are coming from and provide us feedback based on that.
Well, again, that diversity in that group is amazing, and you will hear all different, reading, writing, arithmetic. Let's stick with that. Going over here to, futuristic. It's interesting discussions, and hopefully we'll bring some, ideas back to you.
So Stephen made a great example of taking a building and flipping it upside down, and what falls out is furniture, technology, all the things that are outside of the building envelope that we also have to account for. Buses, that whole list. I think we need to supply you with some historical data of what some rough numbers are of what we've had to spend on an annual basis over a 5-year basis, something so you can grasp what those dollars may look like. And then I would ask you as a committee to understand what PFM gave you, but also understand that those are 3 models. And you can come up with whatever model you want. If it is a 10-year sinking fund at a certain mill rate that you come back with us, you don't have to follow what was given or what was presented. There are no boundaries to you to bring us an example of what is palatable. Maybe it's a 10-year. Maybe you have a slope that could approach, that we start at a 1 for 10, maybe 2 for the next 10, trying to get to 3 for the next 10. Anything is open to you of the sinking fund side. We have to cover the base piece of what has to be done with the buses, technology, furniture, et cetera. When we turn that building upside down, what's left? What else do we still have to have money to do that the general fund's not going to cover? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not making it easier on you, but I just wanted you to know that nothing is sacred in this. You make up your own model of recommendation to us.
Any last items?
Phil, I just want to jump in with 2 reminders. First, there are community sessions baked into this timeline. Those sessions are designed to be both providing an update where we are in the process, what's happened at board meetings, what's happened at steering team meetings, and also to get input from whoever, hopefully lots of people who show up. And we're stacking those so that there's 2 in a day and they're just a duplicate. We're just trying to be flexible for people who can make it during the day or evening, and we have several of those between now and May. Also, the data that you saw at the top of this presentation is just a glimmer of the 400 plus pages of the full assessment, and we are posting that on our website, most likely tomorrow. I think there were just a couple little updates to make, and I just want folks to know that that is incredibly detailed. You'll see line items for every building. There's images of the buildings in there, and it's a lot to unpack. And if any of you at any time, as you continue studying that, have questions, I ask you to please reach out. We'll get you whatever additional data you need. I'd also invite the community, as they have questions, to not just take something on the surface and run with it. Like, let's really understand it together. And we'll do that in part at these community sessions and just through ongoing dialogue. So as community members reach out to you with questions, feel welcome to invite them to contact me or Anna or Brian, and we'll get them what they need.
To that point, Penny, about the community sessions, I don't know if there's time to have this preparation in advance of those community sessions, but just as you guys are
preparing for those or getting close to those community sessions. Sometimes a general, hey, come and talk to us, it might not pique somebody's interest, or they might not think, oh, let me come to this and just talk generally. So if you've progressed in any way of like, hey, we're thinking about this, can you give us feedback on this? And of course, all other ideas that come at that time, but if there's any opportunity to, give the community a sense of things that you're considering to pique the interest of people who might be interested by those types of issues in a more specific way, it might help generate more attendance or more interest in attending those sessions.
That's good insight. Thank you. One last little nugget so you all know. We have scheduled some facility tours for steering team members. There's about 30 steering team members, and a few of them acknowledge they hadn't physically been in our buildings in a while. Their kids or grandkids have moved on, and so we are hosting some tours. We've had a couple, and the folks who've attended so far, it's been really important for them to see. So they're going to see it in person, they're going to hear about it and study it through that facility assessment and bring this all together. It's an exciting moment, and Jen, you encapsulated this well. It could be heavy when you look at that number and you see the work ahead of us, but our perspective is there's nothing but opportunity here, right? Opportunity to create the kind of future that we think our students deserve and that the world needs, and to bring together a plan that our community can support, in part because they've been with us on this journey.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for coming. Kathy, please extend our appreciation to the rest of the steering team. I know it's a lot of work and we're asking you to volunteer, but I greatly appreciate it. And thank you to everyone.
Schools is a very special organization. I'm a huge fan. So happy to do it.
Thank you. Yeah, take a 5-minute break. All right, item 4, request to address the board. First on the list, I have Don Hinkle.
Before I get started, I just want to thank the board for this last 2 presentations. They were really good. This was a good night for me to be here. So I appreciate, in this last one, all your comments and questions. I think I'm 80% or so away of changing my mind about Northeast Middle School, so thank you. This past Thursday, MSVMA, Michigan School Vocal Music Association, held their district festival at SVSU. So this was choir presentations. Jefferson sent 2 choirs. One of the choirs got a perfect score. Dow High sent 2 choirs, their chorus and chamber singers. Both of them got perfect scores, including not even any recommended improvements. They were the only high school in the district to get a perfect score. Now, just as an aside, Adam Gardner is the choir director on all those choirs. One of the judges gave the high school choirs a standing ovation. So, I mean, it really is an outstanding program. And as they say, Adam isn't getting paid enough for what he does. I think my grandson said he's in the choir. He's got like 125 students this year. So he's really good. There is a connection between music and those who go into math and sciences. And I like to, at the end of the year, they'll bring out the graduating seniors and they talk about what they're going into. And the stuff they're going into didn't exist when I was in high school. I mean, I'm just amazed at how the connection. So, for full disclosure, our families know Adam since he was in high school, okay, and in all the plays and everything. He just really is outstanding. And our other item of full disclosure is our grandchildren are in Dow High and Jefferson Middle School. And so I don't know anything about Midland High, except for the times when they are both performing at the same time. I know they have an equally excellent music program. So today my daughter was over and she said, Mr. DeReese, he says, you realize he's been teaching for 43 years? That's longer than I am old. So when you see the marching band out there, I mean, he's impressive what gets done. So I want to congratulate you. Am I over? I'm sorry. I want to congratulate you on this really balanced program you have with both sports and music, because it's really nice to see a community. I've gone in the past where the music just simply didn't exist and the emphasis was all on sports. This is really a phenomenal school district where you got this balanced effort. So my thanks to you for allowing this to happen here. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. Joe Bonadies.
This is going to be interesting since it dovetails well with a lot you've heard tonight. Several different topics tonight. First, at the last board meeting, you purchased 5,900 Chromebooks as part of the one-to-one program you have with students. I like the discussion about screens for young students and more data on its detrimental effects is coming up regularly. Specifically, you used $2,294,628 of the 2015 Series 3 funds to purchase the Chromebooks for $389 each. That expenditure is 30% of Series 3 bond, which you have been holding for 3 years. So if I take 30% of the total interest to be paid on those Series 3 bonds, divide by the number of Chromebooks and add the initial purchase, these Chromebooks were really costing the taxpayers of Midland $794 each. Again, sinking funds for consumables, no interest, pay-as-you-go, use the mega bonds for true capital expenses. You've already heard that. Second, I liked the concept of building a new Northeast middle school next to the old one and then transitioning. Not the part about losing Northeast, that's another issue, but leveraging an existing building site. The board seems to be leading the charge on the one high school model. I actually agree with the concept since we have half the students, but not the implementation previously discussed. We do not need another school megaplex in a remote location with a new stadium and accessories. If you go down this road, how about putting the new high school in a central location and leveraging your existing resources? Specifically, build the new high school where Parkdale Elementary was next to Midland High. Use the current stadium and facilities, maybe use most of Midland High for CTE and give them more space, maybe give Scott his field house. I don't want to hear you just put tennis courts there. You put $700,000 in Parkdale and then closed it a year later. Third, communications. After hammering the board about what was going on with Fast Ice Robotics Center, the superintendent said that the board was fully informed about the status. The public wasn't, but you are. This is specifically for the robotics part of it. Similarly, before the bond, you had a room full of swim parents here and claimed you were working with the city and the community on a plan for a pool for competitive swimming. It's been a year, no updates. Keep the public informed. I regret the inconvenience of these public comments cause you, but it may never be the good old days of meetings in the empty room and operating in a vacuum. We go back to last month's discussion, earn trust. Thank you.
Dave Romanesco.
We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving just powers from the consent of the governed. The Declaration of Independence, 1776. Midland Public Schools and the school board are government-based organization, and because that, they tax. They are just powers. Sadly, the right to pursue happiness is very difficult to manifest when poor proficiency from public education. Let's take a look at MPS data from 2025, fifth grade in reading and math for elementary schools. Can students pursue happiness with 25% math proficiency or 46% reading proficiency? That's Chestnut Hill, my neighborhood school district. Is proficiency from 25% to 74% a tolerable range to pursue happiness? SAT scores measure proficiency. Skilled trade scores are measured by proficiency, but Midland Public Schools touts school index, where 5 of 6 of the elementary schools have school indexes above 90%, but math proficiency is below 60%, with the lowest at 25. School index inspires excellence, yet school proficiency inspires poor results, leading to income inequality and lack of family affordability. In our athletic teams, if a win-loss record was 50%, we would never have a conference championship. Surely the athletic director would find other coaches and assistant coaches, for team losses are very public. Yes, the proficiency data is discoverable and action can be taken for change. However, Midland Public Schools, since 2015, have done little substantive improvements in proficiency. Coaches lose their jobs, but principals, department heads, superintendents seem to keep their jobs, even in the face of creating future lack of family affordability. School boards, senior leaders, they're smart people. Teachers want to do much better than the results indicate. Do the teachers have the tools, curriculum, leadership to excel? Does the education union have too much power contributing to this proficiency problems? Athletic win and loss records is not negotiated by the union contract. We have no control over the state, but we do have every opportunity to become the most proficient school district if we had the courage to do that job. Affordability is a powerful buzzword these days in politics. Are our public schools the root cause of inequality? Human capital is the most important capital of the United States. Proficient students beget positive human capital. The pursuit of happiness is empowered by capable people who have a proficiency above 75% in all subjects. MPS needs to do a better job, or when income inequality is discussed in the news, we can sadly say, I did that because I didn't care to change and empower teachers to teach excellence. Thank you.
Is there anybody would like to address the board? Okay. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Katie Miller. I am a parent of a first grader at Seabrook Elementary, and I appreciate it. I just wanted to say, and this is very unplanned, but I wanted to thank all of our presenters this evening for the time and energy they put into a very thorough presentation, to the board for taking the time to do due diligence and to prepare our community with as much information as possible as we move forward through this new facilities and strategic planning process. I also want to voice that as a parent, I believe that my student is incredibly well taken care of by our public schools. You saw Carpenter Pre-Primary Center, my son went there, had Mrs. Deshay as a teacher. She is incredible. Every single teacher my son has had so far is incredible. And he was very young when we went through the pandemic. He was only 18 months old when we went to shelter in place. And living through that experience with him and then sending him to school and through all of that, I just want to remind the public of the challenges that our teachers, our educators, and our administrators face coming out of the pandemic in particular. When we're talking about proficiency numbers, when we're talking about growth, when we're talking about student outcomes, it is more than what happens in the classroom. It is also what happens at home. It's what's happening in our world. I believe our educators are doing the absolute best that they can possibly do with every single circumstance they have to face in the classroom every single day. Incredible, facilities that are safe, that are clean, that are well maintained will only help them in that. Of course, instructional, proficiency, curriculum improvements, the innovation that we heard here tonight will also assist with that. But I want to give kudos and credit to the instructors, the administrators, and staff. And I think Paul, the bus driver, was my son's bus driver when he was little, and he was incredible. I know exactly what you're talking about, Penny, and his care for our students. So I just encourage people to really think about the human aspect of what we're talking about, the challenges that educators face every single day in teaching students that come from a wide variety of circumstances and backgrounds, and give them a lot more credit than we seem to give them when we are in this meeting monthly. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Katie. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Thank you to everybody that came and spoke to us tonight. Item 5 is curriculum instruction assessment. 5.1 are study committee notes from February 16th and March 3rd.
On February 16th, the Curriculum Instruction Assessment Study Committee met. Members present were myself, Ann Horowitz, Mikey Craig, Ken Weaver, and Penny Miller-Nelson, along with guests Nicole Brusky, Amanda Tomes, Joy-Yang Yao, and Andrea Joswiak. We met at Northeast Middle School, and the meeting started at 1:30. We had the pleasure of visiting a band classroom and a choir classroom at Northeast, and then a presentation from Nicole and Amanda about Midland Public Schools music programs. So we got to hear, again, some glowing praise about those music programs already tonight. It was great to hear some more of those in-depth numbers. And then Joy presented on student and family engagement activities for January and February. We also met on March 3rd. Members present were myself, Ann Horowitz, Mikey Craig, Ken Weaver, Penny Miller-Nelson, and Anna Womack. And guests present were Stephen Gunther from GMB and Bill Cox from Clark Construction. We met here and started at 10 a.m. discussing both strategic planning and facility assessment, a lot of which we heard again tonight. Meeting adjourned at 11:15.
Thanks, Jen. Item 6, Finance, Facilities, and Operations. 6.1 are FFO Study Committee notes from March 2nd. Brad.
So Penny, did you used to write the CIA notes?
I suppose a long time ago I did, yeah.
It used to be like 3 pages, just so you know.
Oh, I see where you're going with this. Yes, okay. That was just for you, Brad.
That was
So you'd have to read those long notes at the meeting.
Oh,
I see.
yeah.
I see this. That was a good one.
Mm-hmm. Finance, Facilities, and Operations Study Committee meeting notes, March 2nd, 5 o'clock. Members present, myself, Scott McFarland, Penny Miller-Nelson, Anna Womack. Our guest presenters were Stephen Gunther and Gary Smith from GMB and Kevin Bushy from Clark Construction. Meeting started at 5 o'clock. We covered January financials. We talked about Midland County net fiber possible use of. We talked about pool resurfacing bid, which we will cover later today. Mulch bid. Administration will propose awarding a bid for pea stone removal and mulch installation at Chestnut Hill and Siebert. Filter first demo bid. Administration will propose awarding a bid for required filter first drinking fountain demolition. Food service renewal, the committee discussed the process for renewing the food service management contract. Audit service renewal, the committee discussed renewing audit services with Yo and Yo. Fast Ice update, the committee discussed the status of Fast Ice building renovations. Alternative programming, the committee discussed alternative programming. Strategic planning, the committee discussed strategic planning, and facilities assessment we discussed as well. The meeting adjourned at 6:36 p.m.
Thanks, Brad. Item 6.2 is for action, the 2025-26 budget amendment number 1. Anna.
Just going to give Sarah a chance to pull it up here. All right, so a public school budget is not advisory in nature, but rather an accounting of the source and uses of public funds. If either changes, the budget must be amended, which brings us to our first budget amendment for the 25-26 school year. So looking at our annual timeline right now, we are at budget revision number 1. Looking ahead, we will have our board budget workshop for the 26-27 school year at our meeting on April 20th. And we will have board action for the approval of the final 25-26 budget amendment and adoption of 26-27 budget on June 15th. We're currently in the preliminary stages right now of working on the 26-27 budget, and we propose both that 26-27 budget and the final 25-26 amendment at the same time, as they are so interconnected. Looking at factors impacting this budget amendment, timing and state funding information is a very large one. We present our budget to you the first week of June annually, and our predictions are locked in the second week of May to be able to prepare all documents for the Board of Education packet. We have continued challenges reacting to categoricals within our state funding of new items, the renewal predictions of what we might see in the next year, and approval of application-based funding. All of this is complicated by the fact that the state budget was not released until October this year. Noteworthy topics in this budget adjustment include state aid. While headlines made it appear that we received record funding, the reduction of retirement costs, offsets, and loss of categoricals resulted in an increase of just a little over $100 per student. Combined with enrollment declining from our prediction, we did not receive nearly the amount of state aid we were anticipating. Retirement rates and cost offsets. Retirement rates are based off of our about $60 million in salaries within this budget, so fractions of a percent matter within these rates. As mentioned a moment ago, we lost some important retirement cost offsets within the state budget this year. New and continuing categoricals. As we receive new categorical funding, we tend to not only receive that additional revenue, but incur additional expenses as well. Health insurance rates. Our renewal rates came in much higher than anticipated this year at an 18% renewal. And then paraprofessionals, we saw an increase in our budget amount for paraprofessional salaries and associated benefits due to human error that was in our original budget, as well as an increase in positions district-wide. Looking at significant revenue changes over $400,000, we see around a $2.8 million loss in 147A4 MPS's cost offset. That has to do with our retirement rate offset that we received from the state. 147C MPS's rate cap, again, related to those retirement costs. We saw about a 2.5 increase. Our proposal A obligation, 22A, we saw a loss of around 1.4 million. 27L educator compensation program saw a little over 1 million in revenue. 27L4 MPS's healthcare offset, 693,000 in revenue. 35ML literacy supports, 686,000 in revenue. 51C special ed Headley, 627,000 in revenue. 147A MPS's cost offset, another one of those retirements, loss of 562,000. And our 22B discretionary funding, 532,000. Now, anything with a C next to it, which you can see is pretty much everything besides our 22A, our 51C, and our 22B, have associated costs in our expenditure budget. So they're not just simply giving us additional revenue. We have costs that go along with those. In our original budget, we showed a general fund revenue of $107,631,505. In this amended budget, we are looking at a general fund revenue of $111,136,632. Looking at our significant expenditure changes, as I talked a minute ago, we had a lot of revenue with the associated expenditure. You see here that any expenditure with that R means that there was associated revenue in the budget. So 147C, our MPS's rate cap, increased by 2.5 million. 27L educator compensation program, 1 million. Health insurance cost, 890,000. The 35M1 literacy support, 686,000. Software licenses, we were able to see a decrease of 650,000, mainly to how we have to compensate for those due to the GASB 96 regulations. And paraprofessionals, the increase of 621,000. Our general fund expenditures that we had in our original budget were $113,689,876. This amended budget we are showing at $121,049,751. Again, while most of our significant expenditure changes had associated revenue, we did see significant increases in our health insurance cost and paraprofessionals that did not have an associated revenue offset. Looking at our general fund expenditures by function, our instruction and student supports make up 75.4% of our budget, which includes that classroom instruction, student support, instructional support. You can see the breakout of every other area. Kind of related to our conversation earlier, our maintenance expense within this general fund is 6.7% of our budget. And just highlighting within there that two things, over 3/4, or that 75.4% goes to classroom and student supports as well as instructional supports, and that 83.5% of this budget is salaries and benefits. Looking at our amendment as it compares to our original budget, you can see here we discussed about the changes in revenues and expenditures. This does change what our deficit projection was. We are maintaining our expected budget variance of 2%. A 1% variance is around $1.21 million. So at this point in our mid-budget, we're looking at expected budget variance of a little over 2.4 million. Giving our anticipated shortfall of a little over 7.4 million, with an anticipated general fund balance of $28,133,024. Our fund balance on June 30th came in audited at $35,624,972, which was a bigger variance than our final prediction, which was at $32,168,846. Looking at our amended budget showing that anticipated general fund balance of a little over 28 million, it is $251,249 less than our original anticipated general fund balance for 25-26 and represents a 23.2% general fund balance percentage. As a reminder, as your expenses go up, your general fund balance percentage will change based on that. We will continue to fine-tune our expenditures and revenues as the third and fourth quarter of the fiscal year progress to make sure that we can stay as in line with everything and make sure that we are being as fiscally responsible as possible. Looking ahead for our key budget drivers, as mentioned before, 25-26 second budget amendment will come at the June 16th meeting. We will be doing a departmental expenditure review and continued categorical monitoring within this area. Alignment of staffing and state budget will play a key role in our work for the 26-27 budget development, where we will also be looking at projected 26-27 enrollment, state and federal funding with key focus on foundation allowance and categorical aid, personnel cost, which take into effect staffing levels, salaries, steps, categories, retirement, medical, UAAL, which has to do with some of our retirement that we have to pay in, our capital improvement needs, and our departmental and school budget building process. The budget workshop will be next month, and we will provide an overview of our financial status and our initial outlooks on our fiscal year 27 revenues and expenditures at that time. As stated in the BAS, the budget is a consistently moving target, and we need to make sure that we are investing our resources wisely for our current needs, but always with an eye on the future to sustain the programs, services that make MPS a special place to learn. We will continue to work with the superintendent and the FFO committee as the processes progress and present our final amendment and initial budget to you all in June. What questions might you have?
Thanks, Anna. Just going back and looking at some of the press releases after Michigan finally got the school aid budget in. The big headline was $400 per student increase. What did we see?
We saw just a little over $100 when everything was fleshed out per student.
So once you go through all the costs associated with those revenues, the net impact on the classroom is $100 a student.
Yes.
And then just a couple of takeaways that I had. One, we had started the year planning to have a deficit year because we had talked for a long time now. We had higher revenues during COVID because all the ESSER dollars running in. It gave us the opportunity to experiment with innovation and new ways of approaching students. If I remember correctly, we tried 6 new things. I think we still have 4 in place on how we improve outcomes for students. We had talked about using our general fund balance to maintain those programs, and that's what we're doing. So that nobody should be surprised by a deficit year. This is a part of the plan that we had put in place. The variance to me is largely due to timing of we passed a budget in June and didn't see a actual budget and know what we were going to get until October. And then I think one of the things that we just need to be cognizant of is two kind of in the weeds items. One is the rising healthcare costs and 18% increase for our staff. And then also continuing to advocate with our legislators to make sure that we're not, as a state, raiding the school aid fund for roads and university, right? I think those are continuing to take money away from the school aid fund that's used for K-12 education to the tune of like $1.4 billion, I think is the approximate number. So those are opportunities for us as a board to continue to work with our local legislators on making sure that we can advocate for, inflation is happening to our district just like it is to the outside world. So the increased costs are not offset by the amount of revenue that we're receiving, or the increase in revenue that we're receiving. So we got to make sure to watch that closely. But any other questions or comments from board members? All right. Can I get a motion for item 6.2, the budget amendment number 1?
So moved.
Motion by McFarland, support by Lauterbach. Any further discussion on 6.2? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item 6.3 for action, pool resurfacing bid. Anna.
Bids were solicited and a tabulation has been provided for resurfacing the Midland Community Pool at Dow High. Administration recommends issuing a purchase order to Advanced Pool Systems, Inc. of Highland, Michigan for $163,025. Capital improvement funds will be utilized for this purchase.
Thank you. Is there a motion for 6.3?
So moved.
Motion by McFarland, support by Lauterbach. Any discussion or questions? All in favor of approving item 6.3, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 6.4 for action, pea stone removal and mulch installation. Anna.
Bids were solicited and a tabulation has been provided for pea gravel removal and delivery and installation of mulch at Chestnut Hill and Seabird Elementary Schools. This project is being undertaken to comply with playground safety standards. Administration recommends issuing a purchase order to 3 Oaks Ground Cover of Wayland, Michigan for $97,846. Capital improvement funds will be utilized for this purchase.
Is there a motion for 6.4?
So moved.
Motion by Ringgold, support by Lauterbach. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving item 6.4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 6.5 for action, filter first drinking fountain demo bid. Anna.
Bids were solicited and a tabulation has been provided for demolition of water fountains throughout the district to comply with Filter First legislation. Administration recommends issuing a purchase order to William E. Walter of Saginaw, Michigan for $76,900. Filter First grant funds will be utilized for this purchase.
Is there a motion for 6.5?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by McFarland, support by Ringgold. Any questions or discussion?
Anna, can you just remind us what time frame we have to replace these drinking fountains in?
This work needs to be completed by June 30th.
Thank you.
And Anna, we have grant funds to offset the cost for 6.5. What about, I should have asked on 6.4? It's just a regulation with no.
Correct.
All in favor of approving item 6.5, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Item 6.6 for action, gifts totaling $10,445. Anna.
We have 2 items tonight totaling $10,445 that will require your acceptance on behalf of the board. These items are a donation from H.H. Dow High Sports Boosters to Dow High for a volleyball net system in the amount of $5,445 and a donation from the Gerstacker Teacher Innovator Grant to Dow High for the purchase of underwater remotely operated vehicles in the amount of $5,000. We would request that you approve accepting these gifts this evening.
I have a motion for item 6.6.
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by Horowitz. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving item 6.6, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 6.7 for information gifts. Anna.
The total amount of gifts listed for information only tonight is $10,371.44. These gifts this evening represent support from programs ranging from support for music programs at Jefferson, City Explorers Club at Dow High, the Food Pantry at Midland High, and more. As is tradition, all donors are going to be recognized in the credits of this evening's broadcast and also through board correspondence upon your behalf. We are grateful for our community support of our students and our programs.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you to our community for those donations. Item 7 are correspondence from the Board of Education. 7.1, letters from the Board of Education to the following individuals or organizations listed in your agenda packet. Item 8, all regular and special board meetings will begin at 7 unless otherwise noted on the timeline listed in your agenda packet, noting that we do have one action item tonight. Item 8.1 would be for action to require a motion to change the start time of the April 20th meeting to begin at 6 p.m. I think when we were looking at the agenda for next month, it looks like a long one that could have some lengthy discussions, so want to make sure to give ourselves plenty of time in starting at 6. I have a motion to change the start time of April 20th to 6.
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by McFarland. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of item 8.1, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess so.
Any opposed? All right. Item 9, study session discussion. Are there any points of clarification, questions, or comments from any board members? I would just make one comment on proficiency. I think a school district is representative of all 7,500 students that go to our district, and I think about how I measure things. I don't measure based on the inputs, measure based on the outputs. And one of the things that we talked about in our strategic plan tonight was what the profile of a graduate is. And when you look at MPS and our growth and proficiency data, we've long talked about how we're a progressive growth district. And while our numbers aren't where we want them to be in the early elementary level, that doesn't mean that we're not working on it. But I would put us up toe-to-toe against any district in the state as to how we grow students by the time they hit 11th and 12th grade, and that's borne out in our proficiency data. Our SAT scores are better than pretty much anybody else in the state. But obviously, we always have room for improvement. And that's where we're continuing to focus is how do you affect change at the early elementary level so that we can grow our students even further by the time they graduate. So that's my only comment, and I'll turn it over to Penny.
Well said. Just want to build some enthusiasm around that strategic plan and that graduate profile. We're digging in, tomorrow, since you've approved that now, and we'll be working with Leanne and her team at OmniTech to start developing that, and we will commit to regular feedback to you all about where we are in that process. Just in the spirit of time, I'll just offer one announcement tonight, and we've had this out in our communications. We have launched what's called the SHINE Squad. SHINE stands for support, help, inspire, nurture, and engage. This is a reboot of our volunteer program. Again, through strategic planning, we heard clearly that our community desires a stronger connection and a stronger partnership. I think we've learned that it's been a while since some of our community members have been in our schools to interact with students and teachers, and this is going to be just a really great opportunity to get parents, grandparents, caregivers, guardians, nieces, uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews, whoever wants to show up and go through our process. You can show up at lunchtime and help open juice cups. You can come out to the playground and help us, play with students and help students stay engaged. You can come in and read to students. We'd love to see that. If you have any desire and heart to be in our schools working with students, we'll have a spot for you. So please go to our website to look for that. It's an easy application process, and we will get you matched up.
Thanks, Penny. Item 10, take a motion to adjourn.
Can we pause for 1 second and give a little shout out to the Midland High women's basketball team?
Yeah.
Where they had a very, very successful season. So props to them.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Don't everybody talk at once.
Support.
All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're adjourned.
All right, good meeting, team.